Hi, my name's Angus, and our group is about glasshouse growing. Our purpose is to create a thriving glasshouse sector within Highland that produces a significant percentage of Highland food grown year round. We had a great group, wonderful expertise and skills within the group. And so other people will also be sharing from our group. Firstly is to say that it seems like just about every other group within the conference, within the conversation, we feel that there's a great overlap between what we're doing and the other groups. So to move away from this kind of silo approach into something that's a centralized resource, Emma, you're probably sitting in the middle there, but with a wonderful flow of knowledge and connection that would enormously assist us in our work. So the groups that we particularly thought would be great to work with is the producer-owned co-op group, the online food hub, the networking group, and picking up small farms. I'm sure there are others as well. One topic that came up within our group that is outside the conference so far is to explore the use of off-peak electricity, renewably produced off-peak electricity. There's a great potential there for giving us a real advantage within this sector if we make good use of that. And secondly, I think as others have said, to explore the economics of this, the donut economics, bringing in the externalities and showing the real economic benefits of a thriving glasshouse sector within Highland would be really great to explore.
Thanks very much, Angus. I'm going to go to full screen or attempt to share screen. Can you see that now? Emma, can you give me a response and tell me if you can see that?
Yeah, that's fine, Joe.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Thank you. Right, I'm going to thank you, Angus. I'm just going to pick up on some of the sort of technical things we've been discussing, and we decided to use some photos for this. Growing food in Highland, it's a bit strange that it's become an unusual talking point, as if it's something that we've not done for a very long time. So I guess what we're saying is that we've been looking at a refresh of the technology. The older versions of technology have been around for several hundred years, but possibly only available to those with deep pockets. And also, it's only really within the last 40 years that we haven't been growing all of our own food here in Highland. Right, this is the view. If any of you have flown into Schiphol Airport at Amsterdam, this is the view you'll see is on your bumpy approach, and the strips of land are vegetable beds on quite a small scale, lots of them, lots of small farms, and the shiny reflective bits you're seeing are glass houses, and each of those squares is around about 1 hectare or 100 square meters by 100 square meters, to give you some scale. So what we were thinking in our group was, this is what the approach to Inverness Dalcross Airport is going to look like in about 15 years. Technology, other tiny countries are already feeding themselves and other countries using renewable energy and using intensive methods of production, but actually also using natural methods of production. And it's interesting that the first burst of this was really done hydroponically in the 1970s, but the latter burst of this in the last 10 years, as we've been researching and looking at international examples, has particularly been about using not necessarily organic certified methods, but using natural methods, growing in soil, using natural feed, but augmenting with light spectrum changes to allow for year-round growth, and also temperature fluctuations, both from above and below. So we've been looking into these and looking at the opportunities to do that. If we were to choose an ideal site, we were thinking about the overlaps on a scoping document in terms of good soils, access to large market, access to distribution hubs, access to energy. Then maybe quite close to Dalcross Inverness Airport is going to be the best location for this. And our first proposal really is to look at building a hectare size glass house by transferring in technology from other countries who are already doing this very well. Finland, Netherlands, and Norway are examples that we've already looked at. And this primarily would be about displacing imports as the climate becomes less stable, and we want to feed more of ourselves locally more often. We'll be reducing water use in the south of Spain, for instance, where we've basically outsourced a lot of our veg production. And in addition, the advantage of that site is that the cooperative has built their new £6 million distribution hub there last year, radiating out to their 23 stores in Highland, and that would be our distribution point. The reason we've looked at this scale is purposeful, because we think that many of the initiatives thus far in the last 30 years of local food development of Highland have really been about small scale, direct from farm to consumer, and we're trying to look at something that's distributed across the whole region to make it more accessible. The second half of that, scale is the one thing we talked about. The second thing we talked about was also reach. How do you reach the other parts of Highland that can't be reached through the co-op network? If you had a growing site close by to it. So we've also thought about, could we make up 1 further hectare of growing ground by in indoor cropping by having 20 different 500-metre square glass houses dotted out in very right locations. These could either be set up by community-minded businesses or by business-minded communities, and they could link together. And the overlap that we would see would actually be the people. We would share on the major site as a hub, but then having these community growing sites further out. The technology, the skills, the agronomy, and so on could all be shared between those 2 hubs. So we're trying to increase access to food for a larger number of people, but also reach out to communities across Highland. And now I'm going to hand over to Dennis.
Thanks, Joe. So just to finish, that's quite a lot of talk about hardware. What's the software that we're going to think about in terms of how the people do that interaction? And so I think the final dimension of this plan is the structure to link it all together. And we kept coming back week after week to talk about the fact that the European mainland growers seem to be better at collaboration than a lot of people in the UK. So we see a much higher standard of development of cooperatives in mainland Europe. What we mean by that is that we can, primary growers seem to be able to link reasonably well in the UK, but there are far fewer examples of that cooperative involvement carrying on really right down to the end customer almost. So thinking about the processing, thinking about the whole commercial side of this venture, the vision is that that is done collaboratively and cooperatively through a structured cooperative organisation, and that organisation could also be lending the technical support to smaller growers, providing the agronomy input as well as required. So there's a whole training and specialist knowledge function. On top of this also being, as you've probably gathered, really quite a committing project. Anybody who gets involved in this is going to be committing quite significant capital to it. And so the importance of having a really strong structure to support communities or individual businesses in making that move is a really important component we see of this whole project.